State of the franchise is back. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham, and we have lots of questions to discuss. What's going on with the San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator search? Pete Carroll, a potential option. What's going down with Robert Saleh? We'll discuss all those things, maybe even get into a little bit of some draft coverage, all that good stuff coming up on State of the Franchise right now. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. Mr. Aponte, good to see you on this beautiful Wednesday. Are you getting hit with a bunch of snow like it is in Mobile and New Orleans and down south? Is that hitting your way over there on the East Coast?
No, just a large illness that they're starting to call like norovirus that I don't even know. Maybe I have it. Like it's just something completely new. So I've been under the weather, but it's just absolutely frigid, like single digits frigid. That's what's going on up here. So yeah, it is kind of insane to see New Orleans be covered in that much snow, just because they're not used to it at all. And even when you see things in like Georgia where it's like not even half an inch, they shut everything down. But right now, my goodness, it is absolutely frigid. Like Jesus Christ could be outside and I would not go outside. Like it's just not happening.
Well, what's crazy is like I saw Matt, or no, was it? It's not Matt. Who's the main guy at the Senior Bowl?
Jim Nagy.
Jim. So I saw him post about like if we were still on a 16-game schedule, the Senior Bowl would be happening right now. And
right.
It's covered in snow in Mobile. And so I'm planning to get out there to the Senior Bowl next week. And you know how it goes, Aponte. If it's snowing, if it's raining, they're not practicing outside. They go inside, and then it's closed off to media. So I'm just like, oh God, here we go. It's probably going to happen. Always some kind of shenanigans is going to go on with the weather down there in Mobile.
I think it was 2021, right after the NFC title game, because I remember I went straight from LA right to the Senior Bowl, and they actually canceled the second practice for that. They didn't cancel it for us. We had to just watch it on TV because they go under the roof. So yeah, weather plays a big factor because they have to get the Senior Bowl off. They can't push it back. They can't postpone it. And for the most part, the whole experience of going to the Senior Bowl is less about the game and more about the practices and the being able to meet people.
Absolutely. So it is what it is. We'll deal with the weather, but there's an interesting weather system percolating around the San Francisco 49ers. Kind of feels like a cloud has been hanging over the 49ers of who's going to be the next DC. And of course, all the conversation has been around Robert Saleh, and rightfully so, because he seems to be like the 49ers' number one and potentially only real external hire. We all know that Brandon Staley seems like he at least could be the guy if it goes somewhere else. But before we get into any of the other things, I want to talk about Robert Saleh. Pete Carroll, that's a name we're going to be talking about on today's show, but I want to get to Robert in a second. With our good friend of the channel, Trent Baalke, getting fired today, is this good or bad for the 49ers in regards to, let's say, the people who hope Robert Saleh will be the DC for the 49ers next year?
This has to be the most bittersweet moment in your YouTube career, Brad. Here's why. On one hand, the idea that Trent Baalke no longer terrorizes the NFL has got to make you smile. We don't want people to lose their jobs, but we all know Brad has a personal vendetta. This isn't business, and this isn't about football. Brad has been slighted by this man. Yeah, it's personal. Like,
he's disrespecting me.
Right. When I see you, it's up. Like that type of energy. But the bittersweet part is because they lost out on Liam Cohen and they've lost out on all these other guys, is now Liam Cohen, who still, by the way, if we want to just be optimistic, has still not signed back in Tampa Bay. So
interesting.
So this move could be perceived as, hey, Liam Cohen, come back. We got rid of the guy that you didn't want, but if you're talking about why it's bittersweet, yes, you have a personal vendetta with Trent Baalke, but also this probably opens the door for Saleh. And then another interesting portion of this is the interim GM that Jacksonville just placed, who is good friends with Robert Saleh and both worked in the San Francisco 49ers organization. The question would be, did you do that just to have an interim GM in place and you would allow a coach to make their own choice? Or did you do that because Robert Saleh will be there Friday and Robert Saleh probably already made the call and said, if Balky's there, I'm not coming. So they make the move, then they bring in his buddy as interim GM, and it feels like it's moving towards Robert Saleh getting a chance in Jacksonville. That's the way that I'm reading it right now. And then you have Jordan Schultz saying that he's a potential front runner. I don't know if this is something. And the reason that I want to point out the Liam Cohen thing is because as dysfunctional as this has been, then you can't rule out the craziest possibility that they literally had Liam Cohen walk away. They know that he hasn't signed yet, and they called him back like, hey, man, look, you can have Trevor Lawrence, and we got rid of Baalke. Pick your guy and just come over here and help us. So there's a lot of things on the table, but if you're reading the tea leaves based on relationships, it's Wog, right? That's the interim GM's name. I believe he was here with us during the time with Saleh. Them being paired together, that doesn't feel like an accident. That feels very purposeful, and it's with intention. To almost say, okay, not only did we get rid of Baalke, we brought in a guy that you really like and are friends with. So now come on in Friday, and then it becomes a matter of whether the Jacksonville Jaguars lock the door and don't let Saleh out of the building, and then the 49ers defensive coordinator process will be at the forefront if it's not already, because I am not a fan of it at all. I have not been a fan of this entire process, the way that they've gone, all the eggs in the basket stuff. So this is such a strange time right now because there's a lot of things on the table, but it does look like Saleh's probably the front runner right now in Jacksonville.
Are you surprised by how the 49ers have handled this? Because it kind of feels pretty on brand with like some of the past decisions that have been made. Do you kind of get that sense? Like they know what they want and they're like, we don't need to do too much due diligence anywhere else because we know what we want. And if it doesn't happen, we have a backup and we're just going to go with that, which is potentially Brandon Staley.
I am surprised. And here's why. Last year, the 49ers exhausted all of their options, right? We talked about it. Spagnuolo, they reached out to Belichick, and obviously when you play in the last game of the season, your time is limited to find people because it's already the Super Bowl. Like we're looking at it right now. Ben Johnson's there, in Chicago, and guys are getting signed, and Aaron Glenn's with the Jets, and and Dennis Allen followed Ben Johnson. So when you have a jump on the process, and for you to just say, Saleh's our guy, we hope no one offers him a head coaching job without risking or calculating the risk of what somebody could do, what bad teams do, what dysfunctional organizations do in terms of making decisions, right? You got the Dallas Cowboys on one hand. They've won 12 games every year with Mike McCarthy. Cool. Brian Schottenheimer is your replacement. Good luck. Enjoy, guys. Enjoy that because that's going to be terrible. And then you have over here in Jacksonville, you have all of these people that you're bringing in, and Baalke was never let go before. Dysfunctional teams are going to do things that are going to throw a monkey wrench into your plan. The 49ers kind of just said, well, what could go wrong? Everything has gone wrong right now in this defensive coordinator search because here you are. And then you read the Tim Kawakami piece, and he says, there's tension in the building. You can feel it. It's palpable. Why? Because you didn't interview anyone else and you just assumed that Robert Saleh was going to be able to come back and not get any other. That is the part of the process that I will not let slide. And I do think was the worst possible way for you to go about this when you had a chance to exhaust all of your resources and interview nearly every high-profile candidate, and you just didn't. And now, if you don't land Saleh, if you don't land Pete Carroll, you might do the funniest thing in the world. We joke about it. We've been joking about it. Like, get ready to learn Brandon Staley, pal. We're joking. We don't want that. We don't want that. But because you guys didn't go through the due diligence, which is your favorite word in the world, now you're in a position where it's one of these three guys. I just don't understand this process, Brad, when you had all this time to go through the process and do it the right way.
Yeah, no, I agree. It does feel like they felt so confident in Robert Saleh being that guy that he wasn't going to get a head coaching job this cycle, even though he did also interview for the Raiders and Cowboys head coaching job. It's crystal clear Cowboys are going potentially for an internal hire. Raiders actually seem like they could be very interested in Pete Carroll for their head coaching job, which was kind of a surprise for me, especially being a defensive minded head coach and being the age that he is. I wasn't expecting that, but it seems like that could be a potential option. And where the 49ers come in, and at least I've seen it from all the fans, like the fans are just like, what are we doing? It feels like a setup for failure because I think the notion, like you had mentioned, is if it doesn't go their way, they really don't have a backup plan, at least from the perspective of a fan's mind of like, man, you guys could have had maybe this guy over there, that guy over here, and we're just settling with Brandon Staley. Oh, and we know that the perception of Brandon Staley is probably a little bit harsher than the reality, but still, I think it applies. And I think one of the things with this offseason for the 49ers is not only making the right moves, but getting the momentum on your side. When we look at last year's offseason, when we look at all the kind of like ancillary things outside of the X's and O's that happen in between the white lines, there's a lot of negative momentum. And it felt like it ran into the season, whether it's things they could control or couldn't control. And a big part of this offseason for me was get the momentum back on your side. Start making good decisions, getting the fan base in the right spot because this fan base is ravenous and you you don't want them to turn on you because there's a lot of momentum that comes along with it. And we get it. The 49ers aren't going to make decisions solely to appease a fan base. We understand that and recognize that. But I do think it is an important element. I do think with you and I, who are interestingly equipped to engage with this fan base so regularly, I think we have a different perspective of like of what these fans feel like and how that can actually translate into negative momentum that manifests itself in other ways. And I just want to see that the 49ers get it right? Not just like settle. And I think I've mentioned that a couple times on some videos I've done. Is it just feels like we talk about the whole quarterback thing, right? Trading up to 3. Felt like they settled for Trey Lance. Didn't feel like it was the pick they wanted, right? Because they call up LaFleur, hey, can we get you want this number 3 overall pick? We'll take it. We'll take Aaron Rodgers. They said no. So it feels like they settled for that pick. Feels like they settled for Steve Wilkes potentially. They settled for Nick Sorensen. It just feels like this was the opportunity to, like you said, exhaust all options and have a solid A, B, C, D plan where it just feels like they got A and B, and we're gonna go with that. So it could work out, it might not, but it's an interesting process to say the least from the outside looking in.
Yeah, and look, all this to say that it's very possible that Robert Saleh could still be the defensive coordinator. I think our beef
Right.
with this is just the eggs in the basket portion of it, right? Like you didn't even interview anyone else really. Deshae Townsend was someone that they interviewed. You got that part. You didn't want to talk to Dennis Allen, who college praised on numerous occasions. You didn't want to talk to the former Bengals defensive coordinator who got hired somewhere else. You didn't want to talk to Al Golden from Notre Dame. These are names that were just there for you to go ahead and interview and at least see. Who knows? You go ahead and you get into an interview. You think, hey, maybe this guy, maybe not, but you find things out in the interview. What if they blow you away in the interview, right? So, and then I think a little bit to the Al Golden portion is Jesse Minter comes from Michigan. He goes with Harbaugh. Obviously, they were both at Michigan. But there are a little bit of like these defensive coordinators that are coming from college that are changing things up. You want to change things, right? You want things to be a little bit more fresh.
Right.
Why are you not thinking outside of the box? Why are you just constantly in this mode of like, it's got to be 4-3, it's got to be cover 3, it's got to be wide 9. We don't look at it. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that the defense won't be successful regardless of whoever they bring in, because that remains to be seen who it is. But at the same time, you're just kind of stuck in your ways and you're not thinking outside the box. I think I'm more frustrated with the process and the fact that you were just hoping that nobody did anything stupid as an organization and like tried to like take your guy away from you. But that was arrogant. That was dumb. That was lazy.
And
Because
fired their
now,
GM into 2 weeks into the process.
right, like that, and now look at where we are, right? Like, and obviously Pete Carroll's name comes up. My home run hire was somebody that I think we had to try to lure away from the Cleveland Browns, Jim Schwartz, but that's not going to happen. For me, I would love to go to Cleveland and say, what do you need to get him out of what do you need him to get out of this place or whatever, so we can take him? I would ask that as well. I mean, you tried it with Spags, why not try it with Schwartz as well too? So it's interesting to see all of these names that are interesting pieces, and regardless of whether their defense had success the year before, there's still a path to them being very good, and there's always the context of why. For instance, the Bengals defensive coordinator, it's less about him being a bad coordinator and more in the fact that it was just Trey Hendrickson and a bunch of guys, right? Like Trey Hendrickson's amazing, but it was a lack of talent.
Right.
And then there's the step backwards. Like, you want a guy who runs cover 3 and Legion of Boom stuff? Well, let's talk to Gus Bradley. I don't want to talk to Gus Bradley because that's a step back. Are you trying to progress the scheme? Are you trying to show flexibility? Are you trying to show out of the box forward thinking? I think during this process, the 49ers have not. And I think what they've done by putting themselves in the Saleh or bust category has now put themselves in a position where the likelihood increases by the moment that you're going to have to settle for someone just like you did last season. And with all the time that you had, you didn't exhaust every single option and talk to as many people as you could while Saleh was off in Dallas, while Saleh was off, in Jacksonville. He had options too, but you kept saying he'll come back to us, and you don't know that that's possible right now.
I agree. And I think we're both kind of landing on the same spot where firing Trent Baalke actually hurts the 49ers in the sense of we probably do have Robert Saleh as the 49ers defensive coordinator if they retain Trent Baalke, because like who wants to go be a head coach under Trent Baalke for one season and then both of you get fired? And then what are you're not getting a head coaching job then. So it felt like at that moment, it was more desirable for, the Jaguars to flounder for another season, fire Trent Baalke, and then start the search over from scratch, which is what they should have done immediately after the season ended, but they chose not to. I don't know why. Trent Baalke seemingly has this grip over owners that I cannot explain. But at the end of the day, it impacts the 49ers because the 49ers are in a waiting and see period. So now it's up until Friday, right? And the interesting part about this too is, which we'll kind of transition our conversation to, is all the jobs are getting filled. You mentioned Aaron Glenn getting hired by the Jets. We've got Ben Johnson going to the Chicago Bears. Spots are getting filled. DC
sounds like Schottenheimer in Dallas. One more name I want to throw out too, just in case, and this is again fallback completely because he hasn't been hired anywhere. Mike Zimmer, from Dallas, by the way, could be somebody that could be in play.
And so all these jobs are filling up, right? And so then, correct me if I'm wrong, it's pretty much the Cowboys, like you just mentioned, but that seems like they're trending towards an internal hire.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Raiders. Is there other head coaching jobs left?
No, because New England just filled their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, so they're out as well too. So it's done. These staffs are filled out. Everyone. It's at least if you want solace, is if they do miss on Robert Saleh, if they just fall back to Brandon Staley, then that was their plan the entire time. But there are candidates out there for you to go talk to and go, and be with, right? And I do think that part of this process has to be a defensive coordinator that he doesn't clash with Kyle, but he stands up to Kyle. Like, yes, you're the head coach. This is what you want, but I disagree, and this is what I think. And if you listen to the Playmakers podcast or the Play Callers podcast on Spotify, that was the part that Saleh won Kyle over with, because Kyle would say, here's the answer. And Saleh would say, no, it's not. And then Kyle would say, okay, show me your work, like a math equation.
Right.
And then Saleh would. And then they would go at it in practice. You need someone who can be there to withstand it. If it's a guy that Kyle rolls on over and over with no pushback,
Right.
then you are finding yourself in a position where with Kawakami, what he said was they need energy. Robert Saleh fits that mold.
Yep.
Pete Carroll fits that mold. But what you need is a mind that will go up against Kyle and make him rethink the way that he's going about it. Because at times, and this is true in any aspect of life for anyone, you're not 100% right about everything. No one's going to be. What it needs to be is you challenge me, I challenge you, and we get in the middle and we figure this thing out. But it doesn't seem like that with the guys that they've had lately, right? Like with Sorensen, it doesn't seem like that. With Wilkes, it doesn't seem like that. It seemed like Kyle had to step in. Where are the minds that are going to challenge you? And I think that should be a big part of this search and who they interview and who they're interested in is who can stand up to Kyle and say, you know what? I respect what you said there, but here's this, and this is why. And you switch it around and he says, you know what? I didn't think of that. Thank you. You need those sorts of conversations to be forward thinking and move the team forward, in my opinion.
Basically, kind of like someone who has enough kind of weight to be able to push back and say, Kyle, go work on the offense. I got us on the defense. We'll come together. We'll collaborate. But don't worry about us. I got us. I got us over here. And I think that's what really Kyle wants. He wants someone that he can trust to be like, all right, I don't got to worry about what they're doing on the defense because it aligns with my personal philosophy. And I know they're going to make the correct adjustments and they're going to push the right buttons when we need to. And with Wilkes and Sorensen, that clearly just wasn't happening. And to the point where I've honestly never seen, I mean, obviously I cover the 49ers. I don't cover other teams, but watching a head coach ice his defensive coordinator from calling plays because he didn't like the play and he didn't like the look, like how often does that happen?
So then hire me as defensive coordinator then.
A timeout called on the sideline before a play is snapped because your defense is about to run a cover zero blitz. And you're like, hell no, we're not doing that. He needs someone that he can trust, that if they're going to call cover zero, he's like, I trust them to call cover zero. I trust the timing in which they're going to implement it and when they're going to execute it and how they're going to put that into play. And he just hasn't had that with the last two defensive coordinators. So I think we're kind of in lockstep there. Is we're just looking for that guy to complement Kyle, to allow Kyle to get back to what he does best, which is getting in the lab, because let's face it, like Kyle needs to get his offense back on track. I don't think last year was representative of Kyle Shanahan, the genius. It felt like defenses had his number and not the other way around. And as you and I, as people who appreciate Kyle Shanahan's creativity and what he brings to as an offensive play caller, that was one of the first seasons where I'm like, it feels like Kyle's getting out coached. And I'm not sure I've seen that on film. And so we need Kyle to get back in the lab. We need the DC to get in the lab, work on what they're doing, take that scheme like to the next level. And also part of it, I do believe, is personnel. You got to have the right pieces to be able to run what they want to do with that wide nine, which is why we have been hammering defensive line for a while. So, but again, Kyle's in charge of a lot, and he needs someone to be like, hey, man, take this hat away from me. I'm wearing too many hats. Take that hat. Go run this defense. We'll collaborate. This is what I want. This is what the structure I'm looking for. And you know what you're doing. Go execute. I think that's exactly what we need. And you did a great job of kind of explaining what the 49ers need in a defensive coordinator.
Take something off his plate. Allow him to just be an offensive guy, right? You're gonna have an offensive coordinator officially for the first time since 2021. That should help as well. What about this team that was at least with the defense, we can look at it and say yeah, what are you supposed to do when Greenlaw doesn't play for this long? And, you lose Hufanga and you have the regression of Jair Brown and then you have the tragedy of Mooney Ward and, you have the emergence of Lenore and Green and Malik Mustafa, but your defensive line is ravaged and you're essentially running a rotation of guys that were supposed to be depth pieces. Sure, we can explain that part. And sure, you can probably throw some of that on the offense. No Christian McCaffrey, Brendan Ayuk left. But with an offense that has Jordan Mason at times, it has George Kittle, it has Deebo Samuel, it has Jawan Jennings, you expect more from the offense. You do.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of where we are too. It's just the process of this had to be someone who is, what is it? Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians? No. You need guys that are going to be leaders, right? Every single spot. Like, again, if Saleh gets in there and let's just say, and that's best case scenario, I'm knocking on wood, then Kyle, you don't got to be in this room unless you really have a big gripe or something like that. Yeah, we'll go at it in practice. That's fine. But if you have
like a look you want to exploit or something like that.
But if you have a guy that you constantly have to hold their hand in halftime and do all those things, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that's the portion that it's like you needed to knock this defensive coordinator hire out of the park. And what I mean by that is there's nothing certain in life. Whoever you hire could either be good or bad. It's a 50-50 chance.
Right.
But you needed to hire someone that didn't come with a bunch of questions or come with experience issues. It just had to be someone that you can set your watch to. Now, good or bad, you'll find out how that plays out. But it had to be right off the bat. We understand the vision. He should be able to hit the ground running and let's go. But unfortunately, if Saleh's not that, if Pete Carroll doesn't come in, and I actually would love that, the Pete Carroll thing. So we can turn to that. But if it is someone else, a Brandon Staley, or someone else that just maybe has had issues other places, or someone that fits the mold of a guy that kind of needs his hand held, then you're going to start to hear things about Kyle Shanahan that are just going to get louder and louder just naturally. And that's something that, regardless of whether I agree with them, is just objectively true. And people are going to start looking at this because you could write off what happened last year because you played in the last game of the season, but you have been out of this since week 17. You already had to start looking at this thing and started getting it rolling. And, you could have been one of the first teams to get this done if you really interviewed a bunch of people. Maybe someone would have blown you away. But the eggs in the basket with Saleh now has them sweating, as Tim Kawakami reported in his article that just came out, in the building. But it's only your fault. It's only your fault for this. So nobody else to blame but you guys.
So that being said, you kind of mentioned it. Let's transition into that conversation. Some fans like the idea of potentially Pete Carroll being the defensive coordinator. Some fans can't get over their 49er, rose-colored glasses of, well, he was our rival for so many years. He knocked the 49ers out of NFC championship games, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That would be a pretty solid hire, would it not?
Absolutely, 100%. So the defense that the 49ers are trying to run is Pete Carroll's defense. Who better than Pete Carroll to just focus on the defense? And while you guys want to talk about the Seattle stuff, that's fine. I got over the Richard Sherman stuff really quickly, because he was literally at the top of my list of players I disliked. But I got over that real quickly.
Yeah, who's at the top for every 49er?
For everyone. The thing is this. What you fail to realize about Carroll is that while their defenses were getting cooked by Kyle Shanahan, he didn't have a problem identifying talent. Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, other guys, veterans down the line, right? In the middle, right? The talent aspect is something that we're not thinking about. Pete Carroll can tell a dude from a dude. At the combine,
right?
I see him. He's a fit. I see him. I see what jumps off the tape. That part is the part that I think people are losing sight of, because he does identify talent. The problem is the sum of the parts wasn't as good as all together, right? And Kyle Shanahan understand that. So look, if you're Kyle Shanahan and you're saying, listen, we're going to run 4-3, cover 3 all day. This is it. We're not moving. Who better than the Godfather, the one that you're trying to recreate his defense anyway, Why not let him get in there? I don't mind this at all. On the flip side, Brandon Staley is a Fangio disciple. He's not from the same. He's not from the same tree. He's not even in the same garden, right? with Fangio, right? So if you guys are, and this is the funny part, and look, I'm just gonna say this. I don't have an opinion either way, but this is objectively true. If you guys are looking for a scheme change, the answer is actually Brandon Staley, who would be the one who changes things and does things a little bit differently. But if you want someone who can efficiently run what the 49ers want to run, if it's not Robert Saleh, who, again, part of the same tree, it would be Pete Carroll. And I think that's the part that I think we're losing a little bit of sight of, is how well he identified talent on the defensive side of the ball, because we all hate the Seahawks, but Witherspoon's a dog. Reek Willen's good. Leonard Williams, them getting him, in free agency. These are all good players. He has an eye for talent.
He drafted my draft crush, Abe Lucas.
Boye Mafe. So getting him in the process of getting these defensive guys in there. If the 49ers are going to the trenches, if it's edge, if it's defensive tackle, do you trust Pete Carroll to identify and help with you? I think you do. And I think that part is the part that people are overlooking and glossing over if he is the defensive coordinator for the 49ers in 2025.
Well, it's funny too, because you and I, we've been going to the NFL scouting combine for a couple years in a row now, and who's always up front and center, not in the boxes, but in the stands, as close to the action as possible, watching it all. Pistol Pete Carroll over there, chopping up it, chewing his gum, just like I'll never forget our boy Jordan Elliott walking on over, having
Big Pete Carroll fan,
having a nice like 5-10 minute conversation with Pete Carroll, just right there in the stands. He's out in front. He's front and center. So Kyle Shanahan doesn't even go to the scouting combine. Pete Carroll's like not in the box. He's in the stands. He's invested. He cares. He cares about the talent acquisition part of it. So I do think that is 100% a great point. And for me, like to the point about previous, Seattle defenses getting shredded up. I mean, it's ebbs and flows, man. It's ebbs and flows. Pete Carroll really made our lives hell with the Legion of Boom and all of those guys. And, we can't pretend like when he was, getting there towards the tail end, even though he did draft some young talent, they were also kind of going through that transition of key all-pro players retiring, moving on, and having to kind of turn and churn that roster. And it was at the time where the 49ers were ascending in regards to building their roster. So I'm less concerned about that, because the 49ers can do what they need to do to be able to get the right talent in the building. You just need someone who can, just exactly like what we said at the start of this conversation, be able to be in a collaborative relationship with Kyle, where Kyle trusts this person to run his defense and have the freedom to run what he wants to do. Now, clearly that's why I think they're so dead set on getting someone who fits into that cover 3 Seattle shell, is because they don't want the pieces around it to change. They just want someone to come in and be the captain. They don't have a captain. They got a bunch of secondhand fiddle guys trying to operate it, and it's not working. They need someone who knows what they're doing, is confident in what they're doing, and can run that defense like the back of their hand. And that's what they need. And so if it's Pete Carroll, I'm really, really not worried about it at all. Josina Anderson, while we were talking, put out an interesting little tweet. I don't know exactly if it means anything, but some I don't even know who this agent is. It's some NFL agent. Seems like he played for Seattle. Says something about how she's the best, and he quote tweeted and says, she says, "Hi, whatever, pleasantries." And she says, "By the way, your boy Pete C is out here working these lines." And then I saw someone recently just bring up, KJ Wright's name, right? Because KJ Wright is
Defensive quality
on
control.
the 49ers defensive staff. And she says, tell KJ I say what's up. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know exactly what your boy Pete C is out here working these lines. But that sounds like Pete Carroll's trying to get himself a job, whether that's head coach or defensive coordinator. And so could the rumors that kind of started with Tim Kawakami in his article that he put out in the SF Standard, I don't know. Maybe the 49ers picked up the phone and said, maybe we got to do some due diligence here because, hey, if you have that good of a relationship with Robert Saleh is going to tell you probably ahead of time that, hey guys, I think the Jags are meeting my requirements. If it's up to me, I'm leaning towards the Jags. Start picking up the phone, start calling. So that's an interesting element, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. And think of it like this. Now let's look 10 steps ahead. Excuse me if my voice sounds terrible. I just been a little under the weather. Pete Carroll warms up the seat for KJ Wright.
Yeah.
And then
right linebacker coach,
and then KJ Wright takes over as defensive coordinator, gets hired somewhere else, and you continue your comp formula, victories, right? No, seriously. I mean, look, all of these things have to be considered. 100%. All of these things have to be considered. And again, what opening would Pete Carroll be going for as a head coach? The Raiders? That's it. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen. So he has to take a DC job. And at this point in his career, I don't think that anybody thinks that Pete Carroll is an awful head coach or anything like that, where it's like, oh, he wouldn't be hired somewhere else. I just think that he's at a point in his career where the vigors of being a head coach might not be conducive to, where he is in his life.
He's 73.
Right. And be a defensive coordinator is tough. Those guys are, working their asses up too, but it's not a head coach. Way different. So again, the scheme, all right, you don't got to change it. It's his. The guy behind him, okay, he played there. He could get in there. So it makes sense. And when you hear reports from Kawakami and Josina Anderson, everything doesn't mean everything, but it does mean something. And what I mean is there's a reason that this name is up there because the lack of head coaching positions, the fit, how it makes sense. And think about this. We said that the 49ers don't do anything to placate the fans. I 100% believe that. But you would never, not in the big Lord's year of 2025, be able to justify to this fan base Brandon Staley at DC, Nick Sorensen as special teams. And I think they know that. But you can explain Pete Carroll for all those reasons that I named.
We talked about tidal wave of momentum from this fan base. There's already a little portion of this fan base that throws the F word around when they're talking about Kyle Shanahan, and I think you know which word I'm talking about. If they were to hire Brandon Staley and Nick Sorensen as their two coordinators, you want to talk about negative momentum. And again, those hires might have nothing to do with anything that's happening inside that building, but I can guarantee you that's it. The second anything goes bad next season, if the defense falters, if special teams falters, it's not Staley's fault. It's not Sorensen's fault. Whose fault is it, Jason?
Pete Carroll's. No, it's Kyle Shanahan's. No, you're right about the moment.
You get my point. You get my point.
The discussion, which I don't even want to say is a minority anymore. It's not a majority. It's a large amount of fans that are very much on the side of, I don't care what you've done. It might be time to move on. Now, and again, they don't make decisions based on fans, and they shouldn't. I mean, although the Mac Jones thing, we bullied them into that. Let's give ourselves a hand, okay?
We did.
But if you believe that to slow down that momentum to slow down that talk would be to say, we've got Brandon Staley at DC and we're moving Sorensen to special teams. When here's the part about the Staley thing that I think is more concerning than whatever his time with the Chargers was. Brandon Staley has not gotten a defensive coordinator interview anywhere in the last 2 years.
That's actually a good point.
Why is that?
I like that.
Why is that?
I like that.
Yeah. The last 2 years, nobody's knocked on Brandon Staley's door. Rex Ryan gets an interview with the Jets, and Wade Phillips is almost out of let's give him a shot. Like
Brian Griese got
right
for a head coaching job.
So what does that tell you? And
great point.
And if the 49ers had this much confidence in Brandon Staley, let's just say they said, you know what? Mind your business. We got this. Stay along for the ride. This is what we're doing. Then why wasn't he the defensive coordinator this year? Why, when you got rid of Sorensen, didn't you just say, we've got our guy in the building? Let's go. But there's no interviews for Staley, so that means no interest around the league. And yet, Staley's in your building, and then you're going to try to sell us if he is the DC because you whiffed on everyone else by saying this was our guy. He was never your guy. He's not your guy. He's no one's guy. And again, it's less about what happened with the Chargers and more about looking around the league. It's like that meme. Who wants me? And it says 100% no. The guy, like, he's just like this. Like, it's exactly that. Why is it that if all goes wrong, the 49ers would hire Brandon Staley. If all goes wrong and they miss out on everybody else, and they're going to say, he was always our guy. If he was your guy, he would have been to DC last year. And if he was your guy, when you moved on from Nick Sorensen, you wouldn't even looked around at anybody else or even mentioned anybody else's name.
You would have made it already.
Confusing times in Santa Clara. Confusing times.
Friday feels like it could be a big day. I don't know if it would be announced Friday, but it could be announced Friday. I would imagine
the Jaguars are going to do what the Clippers did with DeAndre Jordan. Put the door on put the chair on the door and say, you're not leaving.
Right.
We got your guy. If you don't like him, pick another GM. But we got your guy. He's here. You guys are buddies. And let's roll. Because the Balky thing was, they've been denied so many times, and I saw somebody say it. It's literally this. It's like a head coaching hire walks in, and it's the balloon thing. And they're all popping the balloon. Like the GM, the coaches are popping the balloon.
About that like dating game thing, where they like.
So Balky walks in. Balky walks in with Khan, and they're like, "Oh, it's us two," and pop, 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 pop. Everybody's like, "I'm out." Think about this. I'm not of this opinion. Trevor Lawrence would be a coach's dream to get his hands on, right? Yeah. Right? An offensive coach's dream. Liam Cohen's done such a good job, right? But Liam Cohen said, no shot. You know why? Because of Balky. And then Khan says, well, that's enough. Cohen didn't want to come here. Ben Johnson didn't want to come here. And now they're falling into like desperate last-ditch moments. And their interim GM is cool with Saleh. And that might be enticing enough. And I am sure, I don't have sources, but my sources, which is like things that I make up on vibes, was that he called the Jaguars and said, if you want me back Friday for an interview, Balky better not be there, man, because I'm not coming. So we'll find out. But again, the reason that the 49ers are in this situation is because, again, going back to the original point, what could go wrong? Saleh was not going to get a head coaching job, and yet here we are because of the way the Jaguars have played things. What the 49ers underestimated is how many other organizations can be so dysfunctional and terrible that'll put them in a spot where it's throwing you all curveballs at this point. And the Jaguars have just jaguared again. And Trent Baalke, maybe on his way out, has done the last thing that he can do to 49er fans And that's what makes it bittersweet, Brad. You're happy to see him go, but him leaving might have done his last little middle finger to us. And it's like, what did we do to you, gang? We didn't do anything to you.
Oh, Trent. Good old Trent, man. Well, speaking of Trent, there's other options out there too. Gray Fox says, is Eberflus still out there? And I believe he is.
Yes, he is. Great. Again, I think people will look at him and say, hey, he doesn't know how to manage the clock, and the Bears were a joke. All of those things are true. But if he's a defensive coordinator and he just gets to lock in on DC, maybe. Again, there's interesting ways that they can go, regardless. It doesn't have to just be Saleh, Carroll, or Staley. You can go talk to Mike Zimmer. You can go talk to other guys. My problem is I just wish that they would have interviewed Al Golden from Notre Dame, and the Bengals immediately jumped on him right after the national title game, and now he's their defensive coordinator. And again, you look at how good that Chargers D was. Jesse Minter, college guy. At what point do we stop exhausting the coaching options here because they have experience, because they've done this, because they've done that, for forward minds and guys that will make other teams copycat that? Almost in the way of, hey, Kyle Shanahan gets hired out of Atlanta. Anybody that's ever been in an elevator with Kyle Shanahan will get an interview and possibly a job at this point. So that's it. Like, that's what I'm talking about with the forward mind thinking of, college DCs. And again, it just goes back to not exhausting every option that you could while you had the time to do it.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Ariel, member of the channel, 34 months. That's pretty damn impressive.
It's a nice picture too on there. I mean, I don't know, like the
guy you in there?
The guy in the gold jacket. I don't know, man. I don't know much about him.
Is that you?
And I say this with a staunch record of heterosexuality. I think that's a very good looking man.
I can't see. It's too small on my screen, but I believe you.
Ariel, is that us? Is that us after the 49ers ripped our hearts out in the Super Bowl?
Oh yeah,
let's see if he answers.
That's for sure. It looks like you.
That's it. That was like right outside of Oracle Park because we just walked around the water like with our heads looking up, like we didn't know what was going on. Yep,
it's nailed it. Confirmed. Sources confirm. Yes, indeed. Yep. That is Mr. Aponte in that profile picture. I'd love to see it. What is your opinion on special teams coordinator? Who was it? Oh, it was Mike Silver who said he does not expect Nick Sorensen to be the team special team coordinator. If that's the case, why haven't they hired a special teams coordinator? Because they're not interviewing new candidates. So that's another kind of interesting development that's kind of gotten swept under the rug, would you say?
Yeah, I think that if it lands on Nick Sorensen again, people are not going to be happy. My dream special teams coordinator is a guy that I don't know his name. You know why? Because it means that nothing's going wrong. I don't care who it is. I don't want to know your name. I just want you to fix it. I don't ever want to hear your name spoken on Twitter, in a press conference, in a game. You don't need to know the special teams coordinator. Just do your job. You don't need to know. I don't need to know. It's like, remember when you'll say like there's a rookie player out there and you're like, oh, his name hasn't been called. Yeah, good.
Like an offensive lineman. Oh, we haven't heard his name called today for making a mistake.
Good. Knowing the special teams coordinator's name, address, everything, like knowing everything about him, not a good thing. Not a good thing. I want his name to be anonymous. I want his name to be John Doe. I want his name to be I don't care. So I don't care. Bones Fossil would have been good. That would have been good. John Fossil would have been really good from Dallas.
He's got a fiery personality.
He does. But I don't care, Ariel, truthfully. I really don't, man. And I think the less we know about a special teams coordinator means the better things are going.
How do you feel about this kind of related? Kickers have been having a rough go throughout the playoffs, college postseason.
Have they?
Kind of an epidemic. Did you feel like at the start of the year they were talking about how good kickers were? And then all of a sudden, when the pressure is all the way up, they're having a hard time.
No comment. I've never had a
give us our comment. We need our daily dose of spicy Aponte. Come on, give the people what they want. Chili says watching Aponte crash out is popcorn worthy.
I can't crash out while I'm sick. I can't. This is like a light crash out.
They're respectful.
Okay,
no,
this is
composed.
No, all right. So this is the most logical way that I can talk about this, and it's less about individual kickers and what the problem is with the process of kickers and why it's so volatile. 1 year, you're the GOAT. The next year, you can't even kick the ball from 30 yards in. The problem is when that volatility gets met with high investment, it becomes a bigger issue. Year to year. And you would think the 49er fans understood this with David Akers. David Akers, 1 year, missed all the kicks. David Akers, the next year, made all the kicks. Very rarely do you have someone year to year, and this is your upper echelon of kickers, top 4, top 5, maybe top 7 guys. But when you have guys like Chase McLaughlin, who stepped in for the 49ers, remember he missed that kick on Monday Night Football in 2019?
Yep.
Now he's really good in Tampa. When you have Joey Sly come in for Robbie Gould, he was the kicker in Washington, replaced by, what's his name? Former 49ers kicker Zane Gonzalez. So the volatility of the position is why you do not invest in high draft capital, because 1 year a kicker could be absolutely useless. The next year he's the best kicker in the league. And those examples are the best ones that I can give you. And then Matthew Wright goes somewhere else. He makes kicks. Why can we just keep finding guys on the street? Pat O'Donnell, amazing. Incredible. What was the league doing leaving him around, sitting around on the couch? Pat O'Donnell's a franchise punter. Like, this is the issue. Of the top 7 guys, whatever it is, those guys you usually depend on. Everybody else is absolutely 1,100% replaceable with the next guy that's on the street, on the couch. And that's what makes it hard to watch, because these people have like high investments in some of these guys, or they've paid some of these guys, and it's been something that's all over the place. Give me an XFL kicker, yeah, 100%. But we'll see. I don't think I can kick better than Jake Moody. I think you guys are underestimating how hard it is to kick. Just because I get on kickers doesn't mean that I don't at least appreciate a little bit how hard it is. But I will say this. My biggest problem with it is that's all you do. Like, we've been to training camp. There's no kicker drills. You're like off to the side sitting. Like, you have one job. If you're missing the kicks, then we don't.
They'll have one session where they start at like the 20, and then they kick from 28, and then 33, and then 39, and they just bump it back, and that's all we see.
And that's it. And practice is over.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that at you. See how you're feeling.
You did that on purpose.
I absolutely did that on purpose. I was trying to get you to scream a little bit, but I still like your answer. Very composed. Good job. That was
You're
nice.
welcome. Yeah. I mean, it's just about the volatility more than anything. It's not against any one kicker. It's
honestly
just
a good point.
Yeah,
it's a good point.
David Akers, man.
He knows. Lay off Jason and all the kicking stuff, because it comes from a good place.
It comes from I just want them to make their kicks. That's all. Like, when they don't, I'm just like,
that's it.
Damn it! Just like, God, that's horrible.
We understand what it is, right? It's a mantra across the entire NFL. Just do your job, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Do your job. Everything else will fall into play, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think we've exhausted the coaching conversation. I think we feel pretty good with it.
Do you want to give a prediction? I think that's what everybody wants.
Oh, jeez. Do you have a prediction?
Think, if I'm not mistaken, Mike Silver replied to someone on Twitter saying he still thinks Saleh's the guy. Do with
Recently.
that. Yeah, right. Like a few minutes ago. I mean, you can try to find it. I mean, but a few minutes ago. So
Okay.
do with that information what you will. At this point, and again, I'm not against the Pete Carroll thing. I think he's actually second. Um, if I had to guess, I would say 55, 55 Pete Carroll. No, 55 Saleh, 45 Pete Carroll, 5 Brandon Staley.
Oh, you're throwing percentages on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying there's a 55% chance, or I guess you're saying, what is that math? 45% chance he gets hired
So
by the
55 for
Jags?
55 for Saleh, 45 for Carroll, 5% for Staley. And then
Okay.
or maybe 4% for Staley and 1% other.
Okay, that's fair. Whew. See, that's tough because it's all dependent on
What happens
what
Friday?
what happens Friday with Saleh. So, I mean,
Oh yeah, 105. Man, math is hard. All right, you guys got me. 55, 45.
I'm not good at math, so I'm not even
Yeah, math
front.
is hard. Yeah, sorry guys. You guys got me. Thank you for correcting me. Math is not my strong
Numbers
suit.
and letters just do wonders with my ADHD brain. But anyways, um, I would probably say it's honestly it's got to be like 90% Sola because if it comes through, it's got to be Saleh if he doesn't get that job. But again, that's the variable. The variable is he hired or not? And what's that variable? Because to your point is Liam. Oh, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this?
Liam
What's this?
Cohen?
Hold on. This is from Mike Silver just now. The belief in NFL circles is that the Jags coaching search is not limited to Robert Saleh and Patrick Graham, the two candidates with whom they've scheduled second interviews, and that the belief was fortified by the news of Balky's dismissal. Keep an eye on Joe Brady, Kellen Moore, and other assistants whose teams are still in the playoffs. So that
Here's
just came out right now from Mike Silver. So it sounds like the Jags are reopening completely, like just starting over their coaching search. And they're basically saying just because we're interviewing Robert Saleh and Patrick Graham doesn't mean that's where we're stopping at. So that helps the 49ers' chances, does it not?
here's the thing, Brad. Doug Peterson was an offensive guy, but you would agree that the Jaguars clearly underperformed on offense for various reasons. Doesn't it seem counterintuitive to go with a defensive guy when it seems like we need to find a coach for Trevor Lawrence to cultivate him and get him to where at least close to what he was built to be? And I would think that that job feels like a vacancy for an offensive mind, someone to put their hands and arms around, Lawrence. So I don't know, man. It could be, it could be that Saleh brings the sternness, the discipline that team needs, to kind of fall in line. But wouldn't it seem like that's a destination, which is why you talk about Ben Johnson, you talk about Liam Cohen. Is why Ben Johnson said, "No, you know what? I'm going to go to Chicago because I'll get my chance with Caleb Williams." Doesn't it seem like that should be an offensive, man?
Sorry, I got completely distracted. Apparently, a bunch of people were having Brad chants in Lombardi's chat. He's saying they were chanting your name. So sorry, I got completely distracted. They were like a sidebar conversation about Brad chants. I was like, what is a Brad chant? Like, what does that mean? Do I chant something? Like, what is that? So sorry. Please reset because I got completely distracted.
No, just Jacksonville feels like a place where an offensive mind would go as a head coach.
Yes, I
That's
agree.
what I
I
think.
feel like that's what they want, right?
Right.
Because
And
you have a
because
young quarterback, you want to have that offensive guy.
young quarterback, you hit on Brian Thomas, you still have Evan Ingram. You have to find a way to kind of elevate Trevor Lawrence a little bit more, right? Again, I think we can agree that at times Lawrence hasn't played as well. He has hit nowhere near the generational lock that he was built to be. But how much of that is coaching? How much of that is someone who can wrap their arms around him? But again, what if it's Saleh, because Saleh's a leader of men and he can get guys in line? But I would think, just in my opinion, that it would be an offensive-minded head coach. So you have the firepower that you do. You have two capable backs in ETN and Tank Bigsby. You obviously have, like you said, Evan Ingram. They paid a lot for Christian Kirk. Brian Thomas is looking like an absolute steal.
So happy with him, I can't even express, Jason.
If you're an LSU wide receiver, draft him. That's it. Like it's golden.
Except one of them who's coming
Which
out
one?
in this class, Lacey.
Yeah, I'm okay.
He got in some off-field trouble. That's
yeah. Oh, yeah. Forget that. Oh, he's got much more to worry about football. Yeah.
No,
I forgot about that. I forgot about that completely. Like even Jarvis Landry, But yeah, it just feels like Jacksonville should be for an offensive mind. How much of that is gonna have to do with what they believe Saleh can do as a leader of men? We're gonna find out Friday. But yeah, it should be an offensive guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I mean that makes me a little bit more optimistic, right on cue too, with our conversation about what we think is going to happen if Joe Brady and Kellen Moore enter that conversation. That becomes interesting because Kellen Moore is in the playoffs and he's in the NFC Championship game. If they go to the Super Bowl and they genuinely want to hire Kellen Moore, that means that Jaguars job could theoretically be hanging out there for quite some time. So, I wonder if the Raiders are doing the same. I wonder if that's why they haven't really made a decision yet, because maybe one of their prospects is in the playoffs, then they're waiting on him. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating, but I don't know. Are we going to find out Friday? It feels like it's absolutely opened up. So things could change in a hurry. I still think it's Robert Saleh or bust, but I do like, again, the idea that Kawakami posed that maybe Pete Carroll is an option as well. And like Josina Anderson was pointing out, apparently Pete C is working the phones. So all I can say is, even though some 49er fans and NFL fans in general hate the offseason, these are the kinds of offseason stuff that I really enjoy, just like how the league is going to change and then everything that follows behind it. So I like seeing the movement. I like seeing where coaches go, where players go, the draft, all that type of stuff. So it's fun for me, for sure. Anything else on the coaching stuff? I feel like we did a good job covering that. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, that's it. But it's gotten very interesting. January 22nd, I don't think that we would have thought we'd still be discussing who it could be. I think we would have already thought that it would have been wrapped up. But what would a 49ers offseason be without a little bit of drama, a little bit of uncertainty? And that's what makes this all fun is no matter what, again, we're not the content creators. We're just the 49ers create the content. We just try to cover it.
We just talk about their content that they create for us.
Yeah. We're a reaction channel, eventually. Essentially, we're just a reaction.
I'm 100% channel. A reaction channel. So, reacting to kind of where the 49ers are currently picking at 11, what is your overall philosophy on positional value at number 11?
Well, the simple answer is best player available. I think that's something that's not groundbreaking, but
right.
What best player is available, right?
Like let's say Genty is available at 11. Okay. Are you going there? If he's BPA?
I think that he doesn't make it past the Bears. I think that he doesn't make it past the Bears. Like they like DeAndre Swift, that's fine, but Ben Johnson's there. I don't think he makes it past the Bears.
That's interesting. I like that take.
And if it does end up at 11, then you let somebody come up and trade for him and you trade back. I think Ashton Giante is a great player. I think he's going to be a phenomenal running back. But if you use that pick on him, I'm not going to be happy because that's not what is going to push this team forward, especially when you have a pick that high. So you essentially let somebody come up, who has a problem. I think it was Javi Vega. Shout out to him, a friend in real life, friend of the program. In our group chat that said, you let Denver come up for 11 and you fall back to 14 and you take best player available from there. Because Denver's got, Estemi and Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, but that thing is like a full-blown committee.
So what Javi's saying is, if you have running back the RB1 at 11, let a team come up and trade assets, drop back a couple picks, and it's not a bad idea because I still think you would be able to get a solid defensive lineman if you were to do that.
And I want Jack Sawyer, but be honest, I do. But I don't want him in the first. Someone is going to take him in the first, though. Someone is going to take him in the first for sure. For sure. So
yeah, I can see that. Dude, there's so many defensive linemen in this class. It's crazy. I saw what was his name? Daniel
that's right.
Jeremiah.
My bad. You guys are doing a great job. Yeah, the Broncos are 21 because they were a playoff team. So all right, so take the Broncos out of it. What if the Dallas Cowboys want to come calling up and move up?
Yeah, Mike's saying the Cowboys. That could be an option because they need a running back desperately bad.
So you let Dallas move up. You let Dallas move up. They get their guy, and you move back. And we've done it before. Wasn't it with Eric Reed? Where the 49ers and the Cowboys traded draft day to get him. So it's not impossible.
I don't remember actually. To be
I think so, guys. I mean, you guys are on it in the chat. So like, if I was wrong, like, what I'm saying, like, you guys should let me know. My math's off. My draft order's off. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Cowboys and the 49ers negotiated a trade in which we ended up with Eric Reed. I'm gonna look it up while you talk.
But yeah, I mean, I don't mind that idea. I've talked about it as well. Many fans have asked me about the running back at 11, and I'm just like, I love the player. I don't love it for the 49ers.
Got it.
Because you got it.
The 49ers traded their first overall and third overall picks into the Dallas Cowboys to get Eric Reed.
Third overall, third round.
No, third round.
Okay.
So they traded number 31.
They have traded before.
That's right. With the Cowboys. So it's not like you can sit there and say, oh, well, the Cowboys and the 49ers would never trade. It's happened before. And again, in the draft, all bets are off. Look, we've even seen Philadelphia and Dallas come together to screw the Giants out of Devonta Smith with a trade up. I don't know if you guys remember, like, literally right in front of them. They were like, they allowed Philadelphia to go right in front of them to get Devonta Smith, and those are division rivals. So it's happened before. It's not something that's common, but it's not impossible. So it could be something like that. But again, look, Brad, it's all a moot point if Will Campbell's there at 11. It's all a moot point.
Do you think they would draft Will Campbell at 11?
I don't know if they would, but they should. I mean, it's right there in front of you. He can play guard for now. While you wait, it's right there. If he's there at 11, I don't think there'd be a person, 49er fan, pundit, critic, analyst, that would like even scoff at the idea of drafting Will Campbell, or they wouldn't be on board with it. Now, that doesn't necessarily make it the right pick, but everyone can get on board with building in the trenches, especially offensive line, especially someone that can step in right away and play guard while you figure out what's going on with Trent Williams, while you figure out what's going on with right tackle. Yeah. So if he's there at 11, I don't care who's there. Him, Giannis, like it's him. It's got to be Will Campbell at 11 if he's there.
I mean, I obviously just mocked him to 11 to the 49ers with my pick, and he's my offensive tackle 1 so far in this class, at least out of the kind of big 3. I still haven't looked into Josh Simmons yet. He's someone I want to look at. who could potentially be a riser. But outside of that, it's a pretty steep fall off. This offensive line class, at least so far as I've gotten into it, it's not what it was last year. Last year was deep, deep, deep offensive line class. This year it's the opposite. It's defensive line. So it's going to be fascinating to see the 49ers kind of process for how they go about this, because I do believe that the first two picks at least need to be O-line, D-line, or D IDL edge. They just need to reinforce those trenches. Again, it's hard looking at the Rams and watching how they've built their defensive line, and they've also invested. I mean, didn't they have two of the highest paid guards in the league? Um, they also, you know, I think they drafted their center. I think it was a late round draft pick, but he was our starter for them as well. So they've been trying to invest back in the offensive line. They've been building their defensive line, and you kind of see the success that they were able to have with rookies, with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, and second year players like Byron Young and Kobe. I believe it's Kobe Turner. I mean, I kind of envy the Rams a little bit, and I don't find myself saying that too often, but I really do like how they built their trenches, and I'm hoping that the 49ers can do the same, because I like what they have currently. I like, of course, you got Bosa on the edge, but inside, Malik Collins to me is a situational pass rusher, which I do like
Rotational guy.
him in that role.
Mhm.
Outside of that, we know that they're going to be moving off Hargrave. Kevin Givens, I don't recall if he's under contract or not. But outside of that, Evan Anderson proved to be a pretty solid option. He seems like he could be a role player who can step into a bigger role next year. But you got Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos. Those are two guys that I think are perfectly in place to allow you to bring on some younger players at their own pace, opposed to just throwing them in there. And you can get some high-end quality players, and you could get back to just having this wave of talent on the defensive line. So if it's not Will Campbell, people are saying that Will Campbell won't make it past the Bears at 11 because they think Will Campbell at minimum is going to go to the Bears. I think at that point, you probably pivot towards defensive line at that point. But if there's other players that are available that they feel is worthy of that pick, then hey, you make the pick. But again, I'm not so sure that I would go running back, even if he is the best player available. Do you think Mason Graham has a shot at making it outside the top 10? Because I know
Crazier things.
49er fans love that idea.
Mhm. Crazier things have happened. I mean, in certain drafts, and every single year you can go through it. And I think this is what's fun about the exercise. And we say this all the time. On January 22nd, right now, we have a grasp on what teams need. We have a grasp, but that changes and everything becomes fluid, kind of quickly before the draft, right? With who they've met with at the combine, and what they've been doing in terms of talking about like what they want to develop, and the history of these new coaches, like whether it's brand new, then we're trying to figure out what their philosophy is, or if it's somebody that's has a record, then like what were typically the pinpointed positions. So right now we have a grasp, but we still got a little bit more football left. Who knows what's about to happen in these games? And then we start to just, once the Super Bowl's over, you start to look around like, okay, this guy could be a post June 1 cut. This guy could get cut. This guy could get moved on from. And then opportunities change, and player positions change. And again, and it's all about the board that's in front of you. This is what the fun
Right.
part is. I love this exercise. But for now, all we can do is go off of the information we have in front of us and all of the positional needs of all these teams. So it's interesting. But again, I think Will Campbell's a very, very good player. I don't know if he makes it to 11 because of the premium on offensive line. And I don't think anybody would look crazy if they took Will Campbell at 9 or 10, ahead, right? It's not something that's far-fetched. He doesn't seem like as much of a project at times, right? Like when Amarius Mims gets drafted last year late in the first round, we're like, man, he
Big
needs time.
project.
Yeah, he needs time. I don't know if you feel that way about Will Campbell, and I think that's a hard thing to find. And then you have your examples of, it's right there in front of your face. Joe Alt's there, bang, you're good. You're just roll him out there. So it's gonna be hard to see and look through the order and see someone who's gonna be willing to pass up on something like that, even with a glaring need. So that's the part. Like, again, you might desperately need a wide receiver. And that's what the Chargers, right? Like, they needed a wide receiver, right? Like, they need other things, but they drafted Ladd McConkey, so they covered that. But they went to the trenches because of Harbaugh. And we all could have seen that one coming. It was Joe Alt. But there could be teams that have a glaring need, but can you pass up on a offensive line prospect like Campbell because they're so hard to come by? And even if he sits for a year, he's still cheap, and then he just goes right into the lineup. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how people value their rosters and how they go for their roster building, because a glaring need doesn't mean that you're going to avoid best player available, which is kind of what we've been saying about the 49ers as well. Just because I don't need an offensive tackle who can play guard right away doesn't mean that I can't upgrade to position right now just because I need something more. I can still fill that position on the back end.
One I also do, like you kind of alluded to it, I think the main point of draft coverage right now is just identifying players, just identifying prospects, because just like you mentioned, we haven't hit free agency yet, and free agency is going to absolutely change boards just based on positional need. Like, if you have a Christian McCaffrey who you are planning on, or you sign a Saquon Barkley, let's say, even though you might have a need at running back as we sit today on January 22nd, but you sign a high caliber player, that doesn't mean just go BPA if it happens to be running back because you need a running back now. You have to be able to allow free agency to play out, and that is going to really solidify these mock drafts. I hear a lot about, like, oh, that this guy's not going there, this guy isn't going there. It's like, mock drafts right now are useless. They are absolutely useless. For me, it's just a tool to identify prospects and kind of build a structure of how to identify certain positions and maybe a slotted area of where they could be drafted. They're going to be torn up and thrown away the second free agency hits, and then we're going to reset it, and then we're going to start really being able to dive in. And then, just as we're going to get more information from the Senior Bowl. Then we're going to get more information from the Combine. We're going to have risers. Braden Fisk was on nobody's radar.
Remember, injury.
The Combine.
Can't take a chance on those knees, right?
Yeah. No one was on no one's radar. He's arguably the biggest riser of the NFL Combine. Went into the second round, I believe it was, and was a stud, absolute stud. So you just never know. So as it stands right now, we're in fact-finding mode.
Correct.
Getting into the tape, who we like, who we could see as a fit within our scheme. And then once free agency happens, then the real mocks really start, and we can start to get a better idea of one, where the rankings are truly at and where the fits are based on positional needs and things like that. So we still got a ways to go for sure.
Right. And there's other teams that right now are in the process of bringing in new hires. So what we think they were prioritizing, let's just say the Jets, this is what they need. Well, you know what? Aaron Glenn just got in the building. What does anything that we said have to do with anything that he's probably thinking already now that he's in the building and he's there? What we think Jacksonville will need. Well, who's the coach? Who's the brain trust now? Now, who's the general manager? Right? Like, all of these factors are still out there, but that's what makes this fun. Again, like, I think you're right. Right now, it's just finding out, like, who's a dude, who's not a dude. And then we'll try to figure out where to place them, in the whole draft scenario. But that's what makes it fun. But again, look, if at 11 Will Campbell's there, I don't think you even blink. Like, you don't even, like, you run, like, don't even, unless the only reason you let the clock run down is because you want to see if someone's going to trade up and give you something else. And having said that, if you have to go up 2 spots in front of somebody else, to make sure you secure Will Campbell, you've got a lot of comp picks at your disposal. So what I want the 49ers to do is simple. Identify your dude and go get him. Not the way that you did with Trey Lance, where you got into 3 and then you started, all right, now we're gonna start looking at quarterbacks. Not that. No, not that. Not that. Not the same thing at all. No. Not hey, we're in number 3. You want to start looking at some quarterbacks, John? Sure, Kyle. No, not that. It's this is our guy. We know we can get ahead of this team to get him. And you'll have all that information by the time the draft is around. So I just want you to be convicted in who this guy is. And you have a borderline top 10 pick. So if you don't have to like Will Campbell like we do, but if it is Will Campbell, then it's got to be Will Campbell. What's the draft day thing? Will Campbell or nobody, right? Like, like type thing. So yeah, go get your guy, man.
Trent Baalke and put AJ Jenkins in an envelope and say,
right, AJ Jenkins, no matter what. Another bulky shot. Will Campbell or Abdul Carter at 11 if both are available. If Abdul Carter's available at 11, I don't even know anything about football at this point because I just can't see it. I cannot see it. I just can't. How can you watch that performance that he put
available
on
or
at 11?
Passing on him.
No. Well, all right. I don't think you pass on Abdul Carter.
Absolutely.
But I don't think he'll be there at 11.
I don't think he'll be there either.
He's not going to make it. He's not going to make it out of the top 5.
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
he's going to be one of those guys that absolutely blow up the combine, do all the measurable testing, speed, all that's going to be there, and he's going to have the tape to match. Abdul's. I think he solidified himself at least as we stand today.
Edge 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. In a stacked defensive line class too. So yeah, he's edge 1, Mason Graham's DT 1, but there's so many options at defensive line.
Why are we not talking about Mike Green?
I love Mike Green.
Mike Green's gonna be somebody's gonna mock him in a second, and another team is gonna run misinformation that they never met with him, nothing like that, and they're gonna surprise the world and take him in the first round, and then he's gonna be a stud.
It's hilarious because PFF current like mock draft rankings are kind of comically low on a lot of players. Mike Green's like at 12. Like they've already got Mike Green at the top. Like when you're drafting at 11, Mike Green, you can see him on the screen. He's within 3 picks. So he's going to be one of the big risers. Like he's going to be one of those guys who just jumps up, and if he has a phenomenal Senior Bowl, it's wraps, right? Because being a smaller school guy, if he goes out, performs against the top tackles that are there, he's first round draft pick. He will be in consideration at 11 if guys like Will Campbell aren't there. So he reminds me of Brian Burns. Brian Burns was the same way. No one had him as like a first round draft pick because he was skinny, just like Mike Green. And I said, just wait. And then he got drafted at 16 overall, I believe it is. And that's kind of the sweet spot for Mike Green as well. So we'll see, man. We'll see how it works. He's a trade down target. If you ask me. Like if they were to drop some spots, drop to 14, 15, 16, then Mike Green.
In the same way, like if the Cowboys just say, Gianti, we've got to get him at 11. Okay, we'll move back one spot for you. Like you got it. Like, if you want to blow a top 11 pick on a running back, that's up to you, right? And then you can have the world's your oyster at that point, because then you can even, maybe move back a little bit more. Like if you feel like that's how the board's going. So this is the part that we were talking about this offseason is I know that we didn't want to get into offseason stuff this early. I know that we wish we were playing football on Sunday, but the possibilities are limitless. And now with all the, you get 2 4th-round comp picks, one for Sam Darnold, one for my goodness, who's the other one?
Chase Young.
And then you got a 7th for Ray McLeod.
Yeah.
So you have your ammunition. You already had how many picks before this? You have
6
your ammunition.
Picks, 4 comp picks.
Right. So you have your ammunition to play the board and move up, move down, do whatever you want, right? And obviously if you move back, you're gaining more ammo as well too. But I think that's what makes this draft process and this offseason so interesting for the 49ers, because they have limitless possibilities to draft a very good football player, stay put, move back, move up. Either way, you're in a position where you're most likely, again, if we talk about the first round being a 50-50 crapshoot, then that means that the top 10, top 11 have a far better chance of being somebody that is going to end up being your dude than later on, like down the line, right? And I think that's the part that makes this all interesting. But again, this all boils down to Kyle and John identifying what exactly we're going for, right? What's their board? If our guy's there, we've got to go get him. If our guy's not, then we can get someone else on the way back. So I just want them to nail the board down. Like, yeah. I don't need you scrambling after someone takes a player that you wanted, which didn't work out too bad because Ronaldo Green's really good. But I need you to be dead on, and this first round pick has to hit. Like, you have to have this guy play every single down. He has to be able to play right away, because Ricky Pearsall was fine this year. I think we understand the circumstances, right? But it would have been really cool if he would have been able to contribute all season, right? And then of course everybody's going to compare. Ladd was behind him, all these other guys that you could have taken. That's fine, but if the 49ers are going to retool this thing and move back quickly to the spot that they want to be, then the first round there's got to be more of a home run right out the gate. We can't be waiting for year 2 or year 3 for it to all click.
I agree. We need polished players to come in and be plug and play. So it's an exciting time. Mock draft 1.0 in the books for me. You doing any mocks this year?
Not yet. I just I had to recover a little bit here. So I'll just say, I just been watching for a little bit. I haven't been able to get into it just because certain things are happening still with football that I really want to keep my eye on, and then again, we got to figure out like where these landing spots are, because then I could probably have a better, if Robert Saleh ends up in Jacksonville, do you think they go offense or they go defense, right? But on the other hand, if it's somebody like Kellen Moore or Joe Brady, do they go offense again? And I think that's the part that we're kind of missing. So yeah, I just trying to relax. This has been my first show for a while, actually. I just been trying to lay low, stay out the way, mind my business. But yeah, we're gonna get closer and everything as well too, because next week is the Senior Bowl, and yeah, it's like we're right here in the swing of things with the draft prospects and the coverage.
Absolutely. You got anything else cooking up this week?
Nope. If you guys want to check NinersNation.com, remember I didn't make the site's name. I just write for them. Don't yell at me. You can check out the article that I just posted. I'll have another.
Is this how you're going to introduce Niners Nation?
I have to. Oh my goodness! It's anytime that I say that I write for Niners Nation, it's not a nation, it's an empire, and I'm just like, why are you yelling at me? I didn't name it. But yeah, NinersNation.com is where you'll find all my stuff every single week. Every single day of the week during the week. And then, we're getting back in the swing of things with being on the streams and stuff like that again. I didn't feel the need to jump on every time that there was a new rumor about like a head coach or a defensive coordinator and stuff like that. I'll let you guys get to it.
I'll take care of that.
Not you, but I'm just saying I'll let you guys discuss it. I love, you know what's the funniest thing? Minding your business is such peace, like inner peace. Because there's so many passionate discussions across the internet, and just watching is just, I don't care what I have to add, because I don't have to add anything. I could just watch. Less that because you have an opinion doesn't mean you have to voice it. I think more than anything, it's just me. I'm just like, I'm out the mix, man. I'd love to watch people go at it.
100%. So we got it's Wednesday. Hopefully we'll know what's going on with the 49ers DC search by Friday.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You got Championship Sunday picks? Alexa, turn off.
For who's going to win?
Yeah.
So we got KC Bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not picking KC.
I'm not either.
Dependent on it. Bills win.
Either.
Landslide. They're going to beat Taylor Swift, Patrick Mahomes, and the refs all at once. Wait, help me out here. Is it a Bills home game?
No, it's in KC.
Oh, that adds a little bit to the drama. I'm still going Bills. I don't care.
I mean,
Needs to be
my
Bills.
soul will never allow me to pick the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship, although I did pick them over Houston. That just felt like easy money.
Yeah,
But shout out to Houston, man. That was a performance of grit. And if you're worried about them this season, you gotta feel way, way better about where they're headed with D'Amico, because those guys, they were there. And again, the calls didn't go their way. Again, I don't think the refs are cheating for the Chiefs, but every single 50-50 call goes for the Chiefs. So do with that
absolutely.
information what you will. Even if there's a chance that it could go their way, it will.
It will.
Even if there's a chance that the ball's on the ground, there's a Chiefs player that's got it. There's a chance that the ball's up in the air. It's going to end up in the Chiefs. So I don't know what to say about that, but yeah, I do think that this is the Bills' time. I think the Chiefs have been playing with fire for too long this season, and
Yeah, that's true.
and you know what? All that to say that I'm gonna probably look like an idiot for saying this, but it's just like, how many one-score games can you win? It just can't continue, can it? It just can't. Every single one-score game you win, you never lose any one-score games. Nothing ever doesn't go your way.
I know.
Come on,
Right?
come on.
The
So I
ball's
got
got
the
to
Bills.
bounce. The ball's got to bounce the Bills' way, and if we start seeing it bounce Kansas City Chiefs' way, we know it's going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But for Philly Commanders, I'm riding the Jaden Daniels hype train
Wow.
all the way to the end.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of what they're doing over there in
Oh yeah.
Washington. I'm a big fan of Jaden Daniels. Admittedly, not familiar with this game because I wasn't scouting quarterbacks. And until I started doing my research on Brandon Thomas, or not Brandon, Brandon Thomas Jr. No,
The lineman,
no, the wide receiver
Brian
for the
Thomas.
Brian Thomas. I call him Brandon. Um, so Brian Thomas Jr. When I started doing my research on him for Dynasty, because I was picking in the back end, and so he was slotted right there. I realized how freaking good Jaden Daniels was because I just never watched him in college, and that dude is unbelievable, and it's absolutely translating to the NFL. And he's not your normal rookie quarterback, and what's his name is a little dinged up. Hurts is a little dinged up. I know
Yeah.
that Saquon Barkley's been playing out of his mind. I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think it's going to
Oh
be a
yeah.
good game. So it's kind of, to me, almost like a toss-up, kind of like a pick 'em. So I'm just picking Commanders just because that's who I want to win.
And unfortunately, Cosme tore his ACL. That's not going to be, a good
Right,
thing.
right.
I gotta say, I think it's the Eagles. I just think, again,
Which is fair. It's not a
yeah,
crazy
I
pick.
think it's. I would love it to be Eagles Bills, um, um, because anybody but the Chiefs, first of all. But I do think that what we're losing is the Commanders did beat the Eagles during the regular season. But remember, Jalen Hurts left that game very early, and it was Kenny Pickett. They did go back and forth, and it was a really good game as well too. The Commanders, what they've done has been truly remarkable. And I want to kind of circle back a little bit, because I think it was the last time that we were on a show, I was talking about how it's kind of funny. Adam Peters left, and the 49ers had a really good draft class, and then everyone started saying, well, are you saying that Adam Peters isn't a good general manager? And I said, no, because he wasn't a general manager here. He did an absolutely good job in Washington, right? Like, when you get the quarterback, everything else falls into line. So yeah, it'll be cool to root for the guy, but I think that eventually the Eagles have the defense that could turn off some of those things that they were doing against Detroit, even if they're blazing hot though. But man, wouldn't it be cool if Jaden Daniels became the first rookie to make a Super Bowl? That would be history in itself. So yeah, I think it's gonna be Bills, Eagles. I'm good. Anybody but the Chiefs. So any of
Yes,
those three
I'm
teams,
fine.
I'm fine with it.
I wouldn't love to see Philly in the Super Bowl, but I also don't really care at the same time. Um, I don't know. I think some 49er fans still got beef with Philly. I feel like after that one game where we beat them, I haven't really thought about Philly ever since. The one where
Well,
I think it was
my
Debo had
my
like
bad.
3 touchdowns.
My bad,
I'm
Brad.
just
Brad. So they hit on the cornerback from Michigan. Sinistro's really good, and they got a starting guard out of it too. So they got Daniel Sinistro and a starting and a starting offensive lineman. That's a good draft, even if McCaffrey and Sanat haven't done anything. So yeah, that's a good draft. When you hit on a dynamic quarterback, and you hit on a guy who's a good rookie corner from Michigan, and then you get a starting offensive line, 3 is not bad, and one of them is a franchise quarterback. It looks like. So I think he had a good draft.
Yeah, definitely had a good draft, and I think their tight end is a good tight end. They're just Zach Ertz is
and Sanat will get there. Sanat will get there.
Are you going to the bowl?
No, New Orleans too expensive, but I will. Apparently, if I'm not mistaken, there's a football game at the Kendrick Lamar concert.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't think that's ever happened before, where there's been a Kendrick Lamar concert and then there's a football game around it.
Let's see what you're doing. You got me. You got me in the first half.
I did. I know you really fell for it.
I'm like, wait a second. They're doing that? That's weird.
No, I mean, look, it's a double dose. I love Kendrick Lamar and I love football. This is perfect.
I'll actually be there.
What? Oh, you're going with
my guy Taylor. So I'll be covering Media Week. I'll be covering Media Week, and I'm not staying for the game though. I'm getting out of there right after that. So we'll see how it goes. I hope it doesn't snow because that's going to be crazy.
Nah, you never been to New Orleans?
I've never been.
Oh, perfect. Hit me, and I got you a Rex. It's my favorite city in America that I've been to.
Oh,
hands down.
Oh yeah.
Hit me with food Rex. I got you. And vibe. But then obviously, you're gonna have the media events and stuff like that you got to go to. But hit me for food Rex. I got you, gang. And
I'm gonna try to get the SF diners going. We got to get some food content out there. All of it.
Hey, I think that it's a perfect mashup. You know what? You do look like you're probably handy in the kitchen. Would I be wrong saying that?
Oh yeah, I know how to. Cook. Sure. Come on, man. Sheesh.
Woo!
Come on, man. Sheesh.
Yo, you know what? A Brad cooking show, but you gotta wear the apron, and you gotta
they've been trying to get me to do because I got like a Blackstone, like the skillet thing, and I love cooking on that. They're like, oh, you got to do a stream while you cook, and I'm like,
yeah.
All right, maybe this off season we'll get into that for sure.
Worlds are colliding. Do it. I swear, do it. I mean, you look like you ever just, if I never met you before, and trust me, this is not me commenting on your stature at all. Just please, walk with me here.
Our community is named after food. Come on, I'm offensive lineman. I'm head first into it. I'm not hiding.
So just walk with me here. Have you ever been at a barbecue and someone is asking who can man the grill, who can prepare the food?
Easy.
I'd look around and I'd go, that guy, him. I know he's not wearing the dad Nikes. I know he's not wearing sandals, but I got a good feeling that this guy knows what he's doing. And I'm going to put my chips in the middle that he's the one who's going to light up this barbecue the best way.
Well, you would be absolutely right. I would hop all over that, and we would eat deliciously prepared food 100%.
Oh, yeah. Brad mans the grill. I'll do the bar 100%. That is
the setup right here.
And man the bar and DJ. Both.
Yeah, you're front of the house. I'll just be in the back cooking it up. And that's how we work.
The man who makes it actually work right here. Yeah. Right. So you can let me do the bar, but I'll also DJ. Front.
We'll put the big the ugly mug in the back.
No. What I mean is the thing that the person that really is gonna make this thing go is not me at all. I mean, I know tunes, and I could definitely handle the bar. But that guy back there is gonna be the thing that you remember and the reason that you want to stay. It's not gonna be because of me, unless you really like the music.
Ariel's running security, I guess.
Ariel's running security. Yeah, Ariel's a big boy, man. Yeah, man. Ariel's gonna be like, "What's your name? Are you on the list?"
Yeah. All right. Good episode today. I think we thoroughly covered the entire coaching situation, and we'll continue to see how it all plays out. But appreciate everyone for tapping in again on State of the Franchise. I'll be in Mobile next week doing Senior Bowl, praying that it doesn't snow or rain, but I'm already seeing some rain on the forecast, so that seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. But then it's straight from Mobile to New Orleans, which is going to be – I'm going to be on the road for 2 weeks, Jason. It's going to be a wild ride. So we're going to get into it all, man.
And we gotta collab because Pro Bowl's the same time. Shout out to Orlando, but I gotta get out there. I want to say by Tuesday because the skills competition is Wednesday, the 29th, which is closed off to the public, only media. And then the game itself is the same day as the Senior Bowl for some reason. I don't understand that part.
They have everything stacked. Pro Bowl, Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl. I don't like it, but it is what it is.
Hey, we got to cover our bases.
Yep, absolutely. But appreciate everyone for tapping in. Grab your cookies on the way out. Appreciate everyone. As always, make sure you sub to both channels, like both videos, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.